When you're trying to control the outcome of things, you're assuming that this one opportunity, this one thing is so limited and scarce that you better control it or it's not going to happen ever. But if you're in alignment, it's okay. There's other opportunities that can come in when you're in alignment, when it is natural for your identity, when you are being that ideal version of you. This episode was probably one of the funnest ones I've done in a very long time. I'm going to show you step by step how to take things and not make them so important, and how to detach yourself from the outcome of things you're putting on a pedestal. Realize that when we talk about things we put on a pedestal, things we make important, we create resistance around it and we block it from coming into our life. And there was a huge book that came out called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. That was a really great book by a guy named Mark Manson. And I'll talk about that, in a minute, kind of when I get into the episode. But it was a phenomenon bestseller book, and basically the idea is the less you care, the better. Now, it doesn't mean just care in general, like you don't care about your family and stuff like that. But what it really means is the more detached from the outcome you are, the more power you have. And it's really the key to experiencing whatever you want in your life. If you put money on a pedestal, if you put love on a pedestal, you're creating resistance and you're blocking it from coming into your life. The key is understanding the vibration of not giving a shit. When you understand that vibration, your whole entire life will change. I used to really care about significance, what people thought about me, and had that perspective. And guess what? I created a lot of resistance in my life, and I spent a long time not so happy. As I've kind of gone through these awakenings this year, I've let go more and more, and I have a dangerous level of confidence within myself, and also just an inner sense of self-worth and authenticity, even where I could just be myself at a new level. And the key to this is understanding that dynamic of not being attached to the outcome, not giving a shit. This is the vibration, the episode of the vibration of not giving a shit, how it will absolutely transform your life. I'm going to share with you many examples in this episode of how you can do that, and examples from other things in my own life, other things I've noticed in other people's lives, and hearing other people in podcasts and stuff, kind of sharing you their stories. How taking things off a pedestal is the key to you making it natural for your self-image to experience what you want, which is the key. And when you learn this, it will change your entire life, because you'll catch yourself when you start becoming needy. You'll catch yourself when you start trying to control the outcome of things. And you will then just surrender and allow and find it much, much easier and much more natural. That's why when they say you got to really want something to get it, no. When you want it, you lack it. When you put it on a pedestal, you create resistance around it. Sometimes people want things, and then eventually it makes it natural for them, and then it becomes easy for them. But when you go into that first and foremost, you'll find that things become easier anyways. Okay? That really is the key to this whole entire process. So, something else I wanted to talk about today was, I slept amazing last night. So well. I'm traveling back to Vegas here in a couple hours. I'm going to go do a gym workout and then go back to Vegas. And I just got done filming this awesome podcast episode. And I slept super deep last night. And I wanted to share with you, I'm actually going to be off my, I've been cutting for 3 months on a diet, meaning I've been eating like 2,000 calories a day when my body naturally burns like 2,500 calories a day, meaning I've been in an energy deficit for 3 months now. And I've lost like 20, 30 pounds of fat. No joke. I went really intense, though. I'm not recommending everyone go this hard. But that's what I did, and I look completely different. I went from like having like a lot of like chunky, it's like a little chunky monkey, to now having like abs. Okay, so big difference. But one thing that's challenging when you're in an energy deficit is sleeping good at night. So that is just a challenge, because your body's literally saying, I've burnt more calories than consumed, and it's kind of in a little bit of a minor starvation mode. But there's something that I've been using to supplement this, and you probably heard me talk about on other podcast episodes, but this podcast is sponsored by Organifi, and today I wanted to highlight Organifi Gold, which is Organifi Chocolate Gold. Imagine delicious hot chocolate with less than 3 grams of sugar or less per serving, so it's very low sugar, and imagine it tastes amazing, and it has a whole bunch of different superfoods in it that help you to sleep amazing at night and to feel great. Well, you would think that doesn't exist, right? Well, it does. And I've been drinking it for a very long time. and I sleep amazing at night when I take it. It's called Organifi Gold Chocolate, and it has a delicious chocolate, almost like a hot cocoa flavor, and it's super easy to make. It's literally a powder, and you take this scoop, you put it in almond milk, cashew milk, water, whatever the heck you want. You mix it in there, 1 scoop, you drink it a couple hours before bed, and it's got very low calorie, it's got barely any sugar in it, and it gets that guilty pleasure thing almost. It's almost like you feel like you're cheating, but you're not. What it does is it promotes relaxation so you can fall asleep with ease, which I've actually found to be very true. It supports a better night rest so you wake up feeling refreshed. I feel refreshed as fuck right now, just so you guys know. And it helps promote a healthy response to stress. And, the average hot cocoa has 200 calories, 6 grams of fat, 25 grams of sugar. This has, it's less than 3 grams of sugar. It's 1 gram of sugar and 23 calories. It doesn't include anything that spikes the blood sugar, like most hot cocoa does. It's got turmeric and ginger in it, and it's got ingredients like turmeric, reishi, mushroom, and ginger, which help support rest, recovery, repair. And it's freaking nutritious. It's certified organic. There's so many good things in it, including lemon balm. It's called lemon balm, which is, it was first mentioned in the movie Homer's Odyssey. It's an herb that's taken at night that helps with relaxation, and it's been used for thousands of years. It's also got turkey tail. I thought that's interesting. Turkey tail mushroom, by the way. So people don't freak out. It's not actual turkey tail, but it's a mushroom, and it's a powerful antioxidant. Anyways, I'm a huge fan of Organifi products in general. They're organic. I use them to maximize my vibration. You probably notice I have a lot of energy. Well, guess what? Part of it's because I take Organifi, the highest vibrational organic supplements, and Organifi Chocolate Gold is one of my all-time favorites. It's for good sleep at night. That's what I use it for, and you can check it out and get 15% off for my audience. All you do is you go to Organifi.com/Aaron, and you use the code Aaron15. So that's Organifi.com/Aaron, AARON 15, or just Aaron. But you use the code Aaron15, you get 15% off, and you can try it. It's less than like $3 a day, less than just 1 gram of sugar a night, and it's 23 calories, and it literally tastes better than hot cocoa, and you'll sleep amazing at night. Win, 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 win. Okay, so that's what I wanted to share with you before we get into this episode. That's also a way you can support the podcast. You support the podcast, I can make more episodes like this, and you can do that by going to Organifi.com/Aaron. Other than that, let's get into this rest of this episode right meow. The degree to which you are detached is the degree to which you have power. Remember that. Detachment is power. And when you talk about the vibration of not giving a shit, not caring, that is power because that person is not attached to the outcome one way or the other. And even think about that. There was a popular book that came out that was called The Subtle Art Not Giving a Fuck. Very top-selling books by a guy named Mark Manson. And it was a great book. But basically, it talks about the power of not giving a shit and how that is so powerful. Now, forgive me. I know some people listening to this are super high vibration butterflies, and they hear the little cuss words and they're like, no, it's so low vibe. But everything is the meaning we give it. Just saying. And when we talk about the vibration, you could say, it's not the vibration of not caring, but it's the vibration of not caring what other people think or not caring about the outcome. Let's say that. And when we get to that place, we get to a dangerous level of power because people can't manipulate us in the same way. We aren't feeling needy. We aren't at the whims of the outer reality. And there is a very powerful energy to not giving a shit. And there's different energy dynamics that I wrote down that I want to talk about in this episode. But in general, understand that the main underlying concept of what I'll be sharing in this episode is one that I've shared before, and it's from an old book that I used to read, but it has to do with something called decreasing importance. Anything we make very important, we put on a pedestal, and what we do is we vibrationally create resistance. Think about it. If you've ever been attracted to someone in your life and you put them on a pedestal, what happened? Normally, you ended up repelling them. They ended up feeling that resistance off of you, and then they put up a wall and they weren't as attracted to you due to that resistance. Now, it's also because you put them on a pedestal. In a way, you did it to yourself. I can feel that. I'm not saying this to be some cocky person, but when I meet somebody in public that may recognize me for my videos, if they are just kind of cool, calm, and collected and like, hey, it's a much easier interaction. But if they're like, oh my goodness, Aaron, blah, 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 and I'm on this pedestal, it makes me feel uncomfortable. I don't know why. It's funny because back when I first wanted to be on YouTube, I thought that'd be so cool to meet people that were like excited like that. Not that they can't be excited, but what I mean is when somebody vibrationally puts you on a pedestal, you feel that resistance. You feel that expectation. You feel that sense of control too, because sometimes when I meet people, people expect me to be like coaching them, like, yeah, my name's Aaron. I help people expand their consciousness. What is happening in your life right now? Okay, well, this is the first thing you need to do, and then the second thing you need to do, and it's not like that. I would feel that control or that expectation if I do meet people. So I'm just kind of showing you from my own example how that kind of works energetically and the energy dynamics of it. However, in general, think about it. If you wanted a job really, really, really bad, you might have put it on a pedestal. Then you go into the job interview and you're in a way there's an inhibition to being yourself. And then the person that's interviewing you can feel that energy, and then they put up a wall. And what is it really saying? This is the crux of this whole entire idea of understanding this. What is the idea behind putting something on a pedestal and decreasing importance? What it means is our self-image, our inner self-image is not linked up to the reality where it is natural for us to be experiencing what we want. Let me say that again. Our inner self-image, the way that we see ourselves, because the way we see ourselves is projected out to other people. When we have an inner self-image that isn't confident, or we see ourselves as not deserving something or somebody, like, you're amazing, I put you on a pedestal because I'm not that worthy. You're a 10, I'm a 6, and therefore you're on a pedestal. They feel that. But remember, it's all an inner game. You could see yourself. It doesn't mean you need to compare yourself and we need to be in this, comparison game. But you could see yourself as a 10. And therefore, if your inner self-image and you feel that way because you know what you deserve, you're going to exude that out. And other people are going to feel that off of you. And then guess what? They're going to be more attracted to you. And then there's going to be more of that reflection, because that's all the outer reality is, by the way, a reflection. And anytime we make something more important, we're creating resistance around it and we're putting it on a pedestal. But remember, what it means is kind of what I was saying before. The inner self-image is not linked up to the reality where it is natural for us. And think about it. Even when, I've noticed this as I've started making more and more money. When I first got into YouTube, I wasn't making much money. Then I learned a little bit of a strategy for making courses, and then also a strategy for getting coaching clients. As I started to do that, I was like, oh, it started to change my self-image a little bit. And as it started to change my self-image, I noticed that the energy changed. Whereas before, if I made $3,000 a month without having to go to a 9-to-5 job, I was like, that was awesome, amazing. And if I wanted to make more, it'd kind of be on a pedestal and I'd have resistance around it. But then I had the awareness. I learned how to do it. I started getting other reference experience. I talked to somebody that was really doing well on YouTube and had way less subscribers than me. I met somebody that was making like $20,000 a month on like 30,000 subscribers, and I had 100,000 subscribers. And I wasn't making anywhere close to that. But then that reference experience said, that is possible. That is possible. I just have to learn something I don't know currently learn. Then I learned about how to launch my first course, which is a morning routine course on how to use the law of attraction and visualization, meditations. It's like a 7-day morning routine journey. I learned about that. And then guess what? After I learned about that, it became natural for me. Then it wasn't on a pedestal. But when it was on a pedestal, there was resistance around it. So one of the key factors here is understanding your own inner self-image and linking to the reality where it is natural for you. Which means that you begin to, like literally right now, imagine the reality where it's not that you don't give a shit and you don't care about anything and you're in apathy, but what it means is you're not attached to the outcome because you trust the course of your life. This is also about understanding, are you doing something that is a means to an end, or are you doing something that is an end in and of itself? I tell people all the time, if you're getting on YouTube because you want a lot of subscribers and YouTube is a means for you to feel significant or to get somewhere, it'll be a very rough journey, a very rough ride. But if you have a passion for making videos and for helping people, then it will be a much easier ride. Now, I'll be honest, when I was first getting on YouTube, it was a mix of both. I think I felt on my inner sense of worthiness. I didn't feel completely worthy. So I was exchanging information and getting value from people and feeling worthy, whole, and complete by getting more views. And that drove me for the first 2 years of making YouTube videos, just to be honest with you guys. But there was still an underlying energy there of I am passionate about making videos, and it is an end of itself in many ways. So when you're doing something, that's something to be aware of. That's why they say you want to find what you're passionate about, because whatever you're passionate about is going to be something that you do for an end of itself. You're not only going to be doing it because of the fruits that it bears. The fruits are nice, but if you actually like the process of gardening, which many people do, some people like the process of fishing. They put their fishing in the water, they sit there, they wait for 8 hours, they drink some water, some tea, some beer, whatever they do, and they sit there and chill. They're learning patience, and it's very relaxing. It's like a form of meditation. But people that go fishing and they sink the line, they're like, it's not coming out, I'm still waiting. And then when they finally reel it in, if they do, then guess what? It's like that's the 2 seconds of pleasure versus the person that had like an hour or two of pleasure of the meditation, of the process. And the person that loves doing it is going to do it more than the person that's just doing it to get fish. Of course, if you need to eat and you're in survival mode, that's a little bit different story. You'll do it just regardless, but I'm talking about the enjoyment of it. Now, anytime we put something on a pedestal, we create resistance. And, you know, it's funny. I was listening to a podcast with Tim Ferriss and a guy named Dax Shepard, who is an actor. I don't remember. I know I've seen him in different movies. Not sure which movies. But he's an actor that now has a podcast. I haven't really watched or listened to his podcast, but I listened to a podcast with him and Tim Ferriss. And he said something interesting in there because he's been through many different movies. He talked about how he's at a level. Oh, yeah, the secret. Secret. I have something to share with you guys there, too. I just got to write down a note. So, he has been through many different acting like auditions, and one thing he said is, he's like, it's this weird thing. He's like, if you could do this, if you are trying to go in to get an acting role, you got to do this weird Jedi mind thing. You have to go in not caring whether you get the role or not. And when you go into that role, you have to be very relaxed and you have to be very present. You have to almost, what he said is, these are his words. You have to almost just be doing the interview or just be doing the audition because you want to do the audition, not because you want to get the part. Think about that. The key to you getting some acting job or something that has very high competition, whether it's a job interview, an acting role, something like that, this Dax Shepard guy says, is he says what you do is you go in and you Jedi mind trick yourself to not care one way or the other. You're cool if you get the role. You're cool if you don't get the role. But you're trying to get into the audition simply because it's an end of itself, not because you're going to actually get the role. And my guess is that what you do is you just be present and you have fun with it. He said that too. Have fun with it. Fun is a different vibration. If you're having fun, things don't really affect you as much. I remember one time I was at the gym with my buddy Victor. We were working out. We go back to the locker room. I'm talking to some friends and that I saw in there, and it's having a good old time. There's this guy that comes over that I've seen many times there that always has kind of a grumpy attitude, older gentleman. He comes, and I'm like, I have my bag, and I'm changing, and I'm talking to some friends, and he like sits down. He goes, oh. He like huffs, and he goes, can you move your bag or something like that? Like he said it in this really, like, my locker's there. I need to get to my bag or something like that. And I was like, okay, I just moved the bag. It almost didn't even penetrate. I was not even affected at all. Back in the day, I'd be like, oh, this guy's being a meanie head. I didn't care. I just like, oh yeah, I moved the bag, and then I went on with my conversation because I was in a fun mentality. I didn't give a shit because I was in my own frame. Realize that too. If you really give a lot of shit, then guess what? You're in someone else's frame. You are at the whims of the external environment. And if you're at the whims of the external environment, guess what? You're giving away your power. And other people can mold you and manipulate you because you're malleable versus being in your own frame. So when we talk about this, and we talked about, what was the other example? There was another example, not the secret thing. I'll talk about that in a minute. But there was other example I remember with the whole Dax Shepard thing, where you have to like Jedi mind trick yourself in order to see it actually as natural for you. There's another example of this. This is separate from what I was going to say. I hope it comes back to me because I think it was cool. But there's a guy named John Jones who's a UFC fighter. John Jones is like one of the best UFC fighters. He's like a tall, lanky guy that's like amazing at UFC. Barely has ever lost, maybe once, or I don't even know if he did lose, or it was a draw, something like that. But anyways, he was on an interview with Joe Rogan, and what he told Joe Rogan was something very interesting. What he used to do before his big fights is the way he would cope with it. It was he would go on a big drinking binge a week before the fights, because what that would do is if he did lose the fight a week later, he would be able to blame it on the fact that he had a binge on alcohol the week before. So he would almost intentionally put himself at a disadvantage so that if he did lose, it almost like it wasn't as important because he could justify it and rationalize it in his mind that he went on a binger a week before and the other guy probably didn't, that he was fighting. That was a weird, twisted way of decreasing the level of importance. That was a way of him not caring as much. And when he doesn't care as much, he's looser going into the process. Okay, here's what I was going to say. There was this movie. What is it called? There's this guy that was like becoming James Bond or something like that. I forget what, there's this movie. It's a documentary, and it's a reenactment of one of the guys that played James Bond for like one or two, Saving Bond, or I forget, man. You guys love, it's a very interesting documentary, but this guy had a very interesting life. He came after, what was his name? Sean Connery. He was James Bond for only like two movies. And it's his life, because after that, he quit being James Bond. And his story, though, of becoming James Bond, it's a reenactment. It's a guy that's like 80 years old in Australia, talking about his journey of becoming James Bond was very interesting. He did like a really cool life, and his quirky documentary I thought was really cool. But here is one thing that he did to become James Bond. He was this guy that really didn't care. He was like a car salesman. He learned how to be a car salesman. And it's funny because he's talking about learning to be a car salesman. And what he did is he realized that all the other salesmen would talk. All he would do is listen and then just like agree, just listen and then show people cars. And listening is what made him like a top salesperson. I thought that was interesting because it's true. I worked in sales for 8 years. And listening to the person, they then feel like you understand them. And then you just show them something. They're like, oh, yeah, I'll take it, because I feel like you just get them. What he said, though, is he went in for a job interview for that of, so it's funny what he did. I forget the exact story, but he goes in for this job interview with this like crazy Hollywood director that's like really rigid and like mean. And what he did is he went down to the actual place where Sean Connery like had his suits done, and somehow he actually stole the freaking suit. Something like that. He stole the suit, or he somehow got the suit. He's wearing Sean Connery's suit. You've got all these other people that are wearing like these Sean Connery looking suits that are in there for the job interview that look exactly like James Bond. He literally walks in and like tells the, I think he like tells that like he just doesn't give a shit. He like walks in, passes the lady. The lady's like, I'm sure you can't do that. And he's like, he just was like being like James Bond. He's like, whatever. And he walked into the office and he says, I'm James Bond or something like that. He was just very unapologetic. And he just went through and he didn't really care one way or the other whether he got it or not. And then that went into, because he didn't give a shit, that was the power. And they ended up, that guy's like, this is the guy. And he told, I think the guy, the dickhead director was like, sit down. He goes, no, or something like that. Like he did what James Bond would do. And he was embodying that energy. And if you look at amazing actors, that's a lot of times what they do is they embody the energy so much that they become it. If you put it on a pedestal, you have not become it yet. You want to become where it's natural for you. And many actors talk about actually channeling. They end up channeling it for them to become amazing at it, which I find very interesting. Now, another example of this, I went in for a job interview once with a buddy of mine. I was working at the time at Hollister. I was getting $8 an hour working at Hollister folding clothes. I wanted to work at somewhere else, and guess where I got interviewed? I got interviewed at Nordstrom Rack, which is, I knew I wanted to eventually work at the mainline Nordstrom store where I ended up, selling shoes. I knew I wanted to work there because I heard that people got paid commission, and that getting paid commission, you could kind of write your own paycheck, and I really liked that idea. You could hustle or sell, and then you'd get paid 10% commission on whatever you sold, and that sounded really cool. That means I could be making 20, 30, 40 bucks an hour instead of some $8 an hour. But in order to get to the full-line store, I had to work at the Rack for a while and then transfer, which is what I did. But I originally went in for an interview with Zappos. I wonder what would happen, though. I would have literally got in with Zappos back in like 2008 or something, like before they blew up. I probably would have like worked my way up, been a manager or something, and then like had like corporate shares. That could have actually been a good thing. But this is what happened. A buddy of mine tells me, hey, Aaron, there's this big group interview for this Zappos job for shoes. And I was like, okay. And I found out they got paid like $12 an hour, which back in 2018, 2019, I was like 18 years old or something like that. I was like, okay, let me see, that's not as much as I know I'll eventually be making at Nordstrom's, but this is what I could do that. And I'll go to the, and I was like, I already have this job kind of set up at Nordstrom Rack. I'm pretty sure I got the job. I don't know if I need to go to this, this thing that you're talking about, this group interview. It seems like a waste of time. He's like, come on, man, just come to it. So I go with my buddy to Zappos interview. This is what happened. We go in, and what he told me and what I read online is that the Zappos people, because they had so much culture, they liked weird people. They said, we like weird people. I said, freaking great. I'm freaking weird. So this is going to be really cool. So this is what happened. I didn't give a shit whether I got the job or not. My buddy did give a shit. He really thought it'd be cool to work there. Why? Because, well, part of it, you walk through this really cool facility in Las Vegas, which is like the home place. They ended up moving the location to some more epic thing downtown. But you go in. I remember going in. You've got a room where people are taking naps. Holy shit. You got rooms where people are just taking naps. That was so weird to see. Then you go into the lunchroom and you've got like porta subs everywhere. I'm like, this is freaking cool. You mean I don't have to spend $8 a day on lunch? I could just go in and they have food catered almost every day. This is freaking amazing. Then the offices had party streamers everywhere. It was like a party. It's like, what's the occasion? It's Tuesday. There is no occasion. I thought it was freaking cool. They had like game rooms. They had all this cool stuff. And I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. So what happens is then I go in for this job interview. It's like a speed job interview where there's many different managers. And when talking to these people, I'm not kidding, I didn't give a shit. I just wanted to have fun because they told me I could be weird. So they're asking me, like, what do you like to do for fun in your free time? And I go, my favorite thing to do is to just jump rope. You ever see like a jump rope just laying on the table and you think to yourself, wow, that'd be fun to jump rope. And then you jump rope. And then you put on some music that you like and you jump rope to your favorite tunes. You ever do that? I wish I could do that right now. I said weird thing like things like that, Like, I don't really think of jump roping and stuff like that, but I'm like, I'm just going to have fun with it. I'm just going to be very sarcastic and quirky and fun. And I would say things like that. And I then was like, I just didn't care one way or the other. Well, after the interview, guess what happened? I was one of the top candidates. They're like, we really want this guy Aaron. And I felt bad for my buddy because I don't think my buddy got a call back, but maybe because he put it on a pedestal. He would have actually been great for it. He's a very sociable person. I could see him doing great. But what is the energy difference here? I didn't give a shit. I just wanted to jump rope to my favorite tunes, bro. You see what I mean? That's the idea. You just don't give a shit. You have more power because you're not attached to the outcome. When you're not attached to the outcome, you are more attractive. Imagine a chick goes out with two different guys at different times. Might be kind of weird they go out at the same time. Goes out with one guy. That guy really cares what she thinks. Really wants validation. Really wants support. So imagine that is one, and chicks are super intuitive. Women can feel energy more than they're just so in tune with their bodies. They can feel, okay, this guy is really excited about being around me. He really wants my validation. Puts up a little bit of a wall. Then she goes out with some other guy. And he just got to beat himself. Doesn't really care. He's just there to have a good time. Guess what? The energy's more free there, not trying to control her, not trying to get something from her. Therefore, she feels that freedom, and she feels more loose, relaxed, and she's like, oh, this guy's really cool. There's a difference in energy there. One's more resistant, trying to control. One's more free. Anytime we have an expectation or we expect someone to be a certain way, we put them on a pedestal, and we create resistance. But the key to this whole process of not giving a shit is not being attached. It's not putting things on a pedestal and making things important. Let things be natural. Let's create a mantra right now. Let it be natural. Just let go. Let it be natural. Let it be. You guys know that song, Let It Be? John Lennon, I think. Anyways, so, okay, here's another thing I wanted to talk about. I was listening to my buddy Lewis Howes. He has a podcast called The School of Greatness. And he had the creator of The Secret on it. Her name is Rhonda Byrne. Anyway, she created the movie The Secret. And listening to her interview was very interesting because she was somebody that, had a lot of success. She was 61 years old, by the way, when she became successful from the movie The Secret back in 2006. Holy shit, can you imagine all that success all at once? So she gets all this stuff. She gets all this money. She bought a Range Rover she said she really wanted, which was really expensive in Australia. And then what happens is once you get to a certain level of success, what happens is you just start not to care about money as much. You start to not really care about things as much. And it was really cool hearing her talk about this thing she went through when there was the big forest fires in Santa Barbara. A lot of her friends lost their houses. Some of her friends died. But when she left her house when there was the fire, she did not grab a whole bunch of things because she realized that would have been a scarcity mindset, and it's almost not going against the grain of life. Maybe the universe would have literally burned up her house. Of course, she grabbed her dog or whatever, I think, she made sure everyone was safe, but her materialistic things, she was not attached to. She was not making them very important. But if something had happened, she said she would have been totally fine because it would have been the universe just showing her or giving her a sign to move in a different direction. There's a certain level of grace and surrender to that I find very cool. And that's just kind of, she went through what is called the second awakening. There's a first awakening you go through, I think, is where you realize your purpose and you realize that life is kind of like you're an eternal spiritual being having a temporary human experience. Is what we call spiritual awakening. There's a second awakening that people go through that it's almost like you just don't care as much. You're like going with the flow of life. You're like let go of the outcome. You're surrendered to the moment, and you kind of just trust life and where it takes you. I've started to get a taste of that recently because for a long time, I associated so much with significance. For 2 or 3 years, I started growing on YouTube, wanted that gold play button from YouTube, and then finally got it, and I realized, it felt very shallow to me. And then I started realizing, this mentality of driving and always going to the future and always wanting more isn't really fulfilling, and it's kind of robbing me from my happiness right now in the present moment. And guess what? As I started to let that go, I started to feel more free, more happy, and in a higher vibe, and now I've got opportunities coming in like crazy. It's crazy how this works. So when we're talking about decreasing importance, it's about realizing that the only reason you're putting things on a pedestal is because you are attached. You are either on a date, you are attached to what this person thinks about you, you are attached to the outcome of what happens, you are attached to some expectation, you are attached. Why are you attached? Because you associate your level of inner happiness or inner sense of self-worth with something on the outside. I don't say this as a cocky asshole, by the way. Don't give a shit what you think. Why? Because I don't care. Does it mean I don't care about you? No. But you see, I'm not attached to the outcome. It's a different energy than if I was like, guys, I hope you like everything I'm saying. But I say that because I also go through this. I get it. If I was attached to what you thought right now, you would feel that resistance. So you see, it's a different energy. When you feel confident, when you base your inner sense of self-worth on what you think, you will have more confidence, you will have more magnetic energy, and you will then find that other opportunities and things come into your life easier than ever. Why? Because you're not attached to the how, you're not attached to things on the outside. All the outer reality is a reflection of the inner reality. That's it. It's a reflection of how you relate to yourself. Other people in your life are reflections of your own subconscious ways you relate to yourself. Becoming aware of that's very powerful. It's like one of the biggest epiphanies you'll have in your life. Because then when things happen, you start to see, what is this reflecting about me? What rules do I have about this in my own life? And what you realize is that you might have these attachments, you might have these expectations, and that's what's creating resistance. So, when we're talking about this whole process, the main thing that I want to show you and to share with you is it's not that you're letting go of caring about anything and you're in apathy. That's not the key. It's about not caring about the outcome because you are doing things for an end of itself versus doing something to get to some future moment versus doing something to get some future outcome. You're doing it because it's just a part of who you are. You've linked up your self-image. You are being the ideal identity, the ideal version of you. And by you being that ideal version of you, that ideal identity, it's a natural reflection that you're getting in your life. It's not on a pedestal. And the way you take things off a pedestal is you stop glorifying it in your mind and you realize the truth. The truth is that thing is a neutral idea that you are glamorizing and that you are putting on a pedestal. You're energetically doing it to yourself. Once you realize that, you can start to lessen its own importance. It doesn't mean you think less of it. It just means you see it and you know that that thing isn't going to really make you happy anyways. If you go on a date with someone, you're like, I really hope this goes so well, and you put them on a pedestal, realize that person is going to go home tonight and take a massive dump. I know. Sounds but guess what? Like when you put something on a pedestal, it's almost like dudes that think women don't like their shit don't stink. You see what I mean? When you start thinking of it like that, you're like, okay, everyone's human. And this person you're putting on a pedestal probably has quirks that you may or may not be deal breakers. You start realizing that these things, and I know that's with dating, but with anything. You get some job, you're like, oh, it's so amazing, I got that job, it's so amazing. But realize you're good either way. Because as you are embodying the ideal identity, you're going to then attract the right job anyways. It's being in a more abundant state. And think about that. When you're trying to control the outcome of things, you're assuming that this one opportunity, this one thing is so limited and scarce that you better control it or it's not going to happen ever. But if you're in alignment, it's okay. There's other opportunities that can come in when you're in alignment, when it is natural for your identity, when you are being that ideal version of you. So one of the biggest epiphanies in the vibration of not giving a shit is just meaning that you are in the vibe of knowing you're good either way. You're not attached to the outcome. You're okay if it happens, it doesn't happen, because you understand abundance, you understand alignment, and you understand that the outer reality is just a reflection of your inner reality. So how can you change your own inner sense of self-image? A lot of it, by the way, is letting go of things that aren't you. It's letting go of old, outdated concepts. When you were a kid, you were told kids are meant to be seen and not heard, and you agreed with it, and you went with that. And then that became your reality. But you may have also been told you were this way, you were not attractive or whatever, and then you identified with it. So how do you feel more worthy? You let go of the belief that you're not. You question the belief that says you're not. I look at my painful past of the abuse and stuff from 7 to 16 years old with the whole ex-stepmom thing, and I realize, okay, my inner sense of self-worth was dependent on that, how I was treated, and what I'm able to do is let go of the belief that I was unworthy. Let go of the pain of the past. That a lot of times meant forgiving my ex-stepmom. Because once I forgave her, I let go of that energy inside of myself, which, remember, if I hold on to anger and resentment, I'm then projecting that out and attracting more situations into my life that reflects that back. So one of the main things I can share with you in this episode is to take things off a pedestal by realizing you can make it natural for you. Let it be natural. Let it be natural. Take it off a pedestal. You're good either way. Be in abundance. Realize that the more you can see it as natural for yourself, you've linked up your self-image, it's more powerful. But just realize that energy dynamic and surrender. When you are not attached, you are at a dangerous level of power. When you are not attached, you are good either way. People cannot manipulate you. You are not at the whims of the external environment. You've surrendered to the universe, knowing the universe can bring you something many times more amazing than your ego can think. And anytime you try to control things, you're resisting, and you're putting this inner pressure on the universe. And the universe will reflect that back to you and give you that resistance right back. So one of the main things that will change your life is learning to take things off a pedestal, learning to not give a shit, which means don't be attached to the outcome. You could still care about things. You could still have, care about people in your life and stuff like that. Doesn't mean you don't give a shit at all, but it means you're not attached to the outcome. You're not trying to control from a level of manipulation. Think about it even like the nice guy, right? The nice guy is needy. They need validation, love, and support. And if they were to experience any level of tension, then they would kind of freak out a little bit. But they're being manipulative. Nice guys are trying to literally extract significance and validation from somebody else. If I'm nice to you, you're going to like me, right? You see? But if the nice guy learns, or the people pleaser, I know a lot of women are watching this too, so a people pleaser, it's like the same version of it. But if you start to value yourself and you start to go within and not care about what other people think, you're going to be at a dangerous level of authenticity. And when you are authentic, you are attractive. Your energy is magnetic. You see, that's the key. It's being aware of that energy dynamic and being yourself unapologetically, but also doing the shadow work. Are you putting people on a pedestal? Are you putting situations on a pedestal? Are you putting events on a pedestal? And if you are, then realize the truth. Those things are neutral things that you're giving a lot of meaning. And because of that meaning, it's on a pedestal, then you're energetically butchering it. And if you're attached to the outcome, you're attached to a label, you're attached to a person, you are creating resistance. The key is to be free. By making things, it's a level of presence that is just so magical. It's making things an end of itself, not a means to an end, to get to some future thing. That is the key. So, if you're listening to this right now on the YouTube channel, I have a podcast called the Doughty Podcast on iTunes and Spotify. Extremely easy to listen to. You'll see that in the description box below. If you're listening to this on the podcast, there's also the video version of this on the main YouTube channel. This is going on the main channel, okay? So you can check that out there. I've been doing a lot more podcast episodes lately. Let me know if you guys like it. Go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll talk to you guys soon. As always, peace, much love, and namaste.